subscribe to us, then we bend our best.
Central London, a river of people streaming through the city. We've seen, old people, younger people, families with children, others also coming from different parts of the UK. We've seen people get off intercity buses, and the organisers say they want this to be the most significant anti-racist, anti-far right protest in British history. And now, of course, we've spoken to those who've come here today, and many of whom have told us that they're here to take a stand against what they call the politics of hate and division.
We're an inclusive country and we welcome people here, and we're happy to have people here. We celebrate the diversity.
Politics of hate and division.
We're an inclusive country and we welcome people here, and we're happy to have people here. We celebrate the diversity.
Need anything from Tesco? Like a Tesco Finest Wiltshire-cured crackling gammon, or a delicious Tesco Finest crackling pork shoulder joint. Now, even better than half price this Easter with your Tesco Club card. Because every little helps.
Let's turn our attention to the Conservatives. Just before the programme, I spoke to the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenock. Kemi Badenock, Marco Rubio says that the war won't be a prolonged conflict. He's talking about weeks rather than months. Do you agree?
Well, it's very hard to say. I want to see this war brought to an end as quickly as possible. It's having an impact globally, not least of all here in the UK. You look at what's happening with oil prices. But the people I'm most concerned about are the Iranian people who are living under a brutal regime. And right now, what that regime is doing, even attacking its own neighbours who haven't attacked it at all, is very concerning. So de-escalation and bringing the conflict to an end as quickly as possible is what I hope will happen.
When you say you're most concerned about the Iranian people, well, of course, there are people elsewhere in the Gulf, and indeed our own people. But let's just talk about what you would do here. If the United States asks us to send troops into the Middle East in support of their Marine Expeditionary Unit, should we?
Well, I don't have the details that the Prime Minister will have on how ready we are to do those things. What I've always said is that we have to act in our national interest. That's the most important thing. And making sure that our country is secure is absolutely essential. Cooperating with allies is absolutely essential. What I'm worried about is that the Prime Minister has been caught unprepared. When the war in Ukraine started, we were able to send munitions and support long beforehand. We could see what was coming. Even back in January, we were talking about a potential war in Iran. Keir Starmer looks to not have been prepared. You look at how long it took HMS Dragon to get to Cyprus, and I'm more concerned about the preparedness of the government.
Well, look, I mean, we can talk about the government all day, but I want to talk about where you stand. And some of it is not entirely clear. I want to ask you this. Do you agree with the Kemi Badenock who said of the government 3 weeks ago, they're not doing enough. What they're doing is catching arrows rather than stopping the archer, i.e. we should have been in right at the very beginning? Or do you agree with the Kemi Badenock who said last week, I wouldn't have joined in the initial strikes? No.
Well, both of those things are correct. I've been very consistent. Catching the arrows and stopping the...
You said we should be right there.
No.
Last week you said we wouldn't be there.
No, Trevor, do not misquote me. I said that if
literally, I'm reading your words.
No, but you're quoting it out of context. I said if people are firing on British bases, it is not enough to stop the missiles. You should stop the Archer. You should go after the missile launch capability. I stand by that. That's not starting the strikes. I have never said that the government should have joined in with the initial strikes, but I have said that if we're being attacked, we should defend ourselves, and it is not enough to catch the arrows. You have to stop the Archer, otherwise you will get hit. I stand by that. That is not, neither of those two statements are in conflict unless you take them out of context. The person who has actually flip-flopped is Keir Starmer. No, let me finish. The person who's actually flip-flopped is Keir Starmer. I told him right at the beginning that he should let the US use our air bases. He said no because Ed Miliband told him to say that, and eventually he said yes.
And you would have said yes to the American use of our bases?
Because when it comes to US versus Iran, Iran is an enemy of this country. Irrespective of who started it, we have a long-standing defense and security relationship with the US, which is very important. So yes.
And you would have let them use our bases and make our bases a target?
Well, as you can see, that was irrelevant. Iran is attacking people irrespective of whether they have been a part of this or not. We need to look at Iran as what it is. We have been dragged into this war, whether we like it or not. What we do now is what's important. And what I'm concerned about is that strategic defense relationships, not just with the US, but with our Gulf allies, Cyprus, are now being put at risk because the Prime Minister doesn't really have a plan. It's not about joining strikes. It's about having a plan. What's his plan? And his plan is just you know, who
All right.
knows?
Well, look, we are where we are, and we are beginning to see the effects of all of this at home. Given that we might be facing supply shortages, energy price rises, you've talked about this already, should the government be rationing fuel?
Well, what the government needs to do is start drilling our own oil and gas in the North Sea. That is what it should be doing.
Yeah, you're answering a question I haven't asked you.
No,
I will ask you that question.
No, I'm telling
but
you
should the government be rationing fuel now?
So I'm not. The government has access to more information than I do on this specifically. There are things that they can do to increase fuel supplies. They're not doing them. So going to fuel rationing.
I want to ask you about
yes,
that.
I know, but you're speaking about a hypothetical.
No, I'm not talking about a hypothetical situation.
I don't want to be in a situation where people are panic buying fuel because of speculative discussions. What should the government do? The first thing it should do is drill our own oil and gas in the North Sea. Right now, what we need to do is make sure that we can support, increase our fuel supplies. The first thing to do is drilling in the North Sea. What it shouldn't be doing is hiking fuel duty. You know, I've been speaking to a lot of businesses. I was on a tractor with a farmer just day before yesterday, and he's already saying that the fuel supplies are disappearing. That the tank that he filled for one price now costs double. People are very worried. I'm very worried about how they're going to manage. But rushing out to say the government should be rationing fuel, that's not the first thing I would be doing. The first thing they should do is start drilling our own oil and gas in the North Sea. It's important for our energy security, our economic security, our national security, and they're not doing that.
Well, this is all, I mean, that's all very helpful, but the point is none of that oil would come on stream for years.
No, that's not with the gas. The gas would be
I know
ready
you
for
could
winter.
start pumping gas from the Jackdaw field.
We heat our homes with gas. All the gas in the North Sea is used in this country.
But I've been asking you what should happen in the next few months when this conflict is on, which is what people are worried about.
Right.
What will happen between now and the summer, not what will happen next year or the years after that.
I'm not even talking about next year. I'm talking about this year. This is one of the things.
There will be no oil coming out of Rosebank this year. You know that.
Get ready with me in an entirely pre-loved outfit where we talk not about fast fashion, but fast tech. A whopping 5 billion devices get thrown away every year, and 80% of those are actually still functional. Just like with fast fashion, we're constantly being told to upgrade our tech to buy the newest, shiniest phone, tablet, whatever the algorithm is showing us that day. When I moved away from fast fashion, I started asking myself 3 questions before buying something new. Do I really need this? Am I still going to love it in a few months? And am I just following a trend? And
oil coming out of Rosebank this year. You know that.
Trevor, there will be gas coming out of Jackdaw before winter.
Nobody's putting gas in.
There will be job savings.
There will be no oil coming out of Rosebank this year. You know that.
Trevor, there will be gas coming out of Jackdaw before winter.
Nobody's putting gas in.
There will be job savings.
Right
now, everything that is happening in the country has got worse because of Labour's bad decisions. They're taxing people away from they're taxing people, the jobs are disappearing, unemployment is increasing. So I'm telling you what they need to do now, what they can do, what's within their power.
I'm asking you about petrol and supplies, for example, for emergency vehicles and so on, and you want to talk about what might happen in 12 months or 24 months' time.
No, I'm not talking about 12 or 24 months. That is not correct. And this is one of the reasons why people don't understand how we are creating a catastrophe on our own shores. We can do something about our gas supplies. We can do something. What worries me is that the government is unprepared for everything that's happening. They're caught by surprise by every single thing, and then we end up in a situation where we're talking about rationing fuel.
You want to open up the Rosebank oil field, Jackdaw gas fields. The Conservative Party has now dumped David Cameron and Theresa May's net zero policies completely. How do you explain that to the most enthusiastic supporter of net zero in the country, the King, in whose name you would be acting were you Prime Minister?
Very, very easily. The fact is, net zero is the slogan, it is not a plan, and it is bankrupting our country. His Majesty does not want to see the country bankrupt because of a slogan. What we need is, have you heard him say that to you directly? I think people should stop putting words in the King's mouth and stop praying in aid of the King. The fact is, governments are elected to do the right thing. The right thing right now is not to bankrupt the country. The right thing right now is not to bankrupt the country with a plan that's not working. I have changed our party's policy. I was against it even when I was there. Everyone knows this. They heard the speeches I gave because it's not working. What we need is cheap, abundant energy. It should be clean, and that means doing everything we can: nuclear, renewables, and oil and gas too.
Can we talk about the politics? You're basically heading for a beating in the May local elections. You barely figure in polls in Scotland and Wales these days. You're more than 10 points behind Reform. You're now weaving conspiracies around 2 men who no longer occupy public office, Morgan McSweeney and Peter Mandelson.
What's the conspiracy I'm weaving, Trevor? Go on.
Apparently, it's fishy that he lost his phone.
Why is
By
that
the way,
a conspiracy?
your Shadow Home Secretary comes in here week after week. It reminds me that crime in London is rampant. People get their phones snatched out of their hands all the time, and that the mayor is a terrible mayor because he's allowing that to happen. It happens to this particular official, and you suddenly decided it's fishy.
Well, why didn't he tell the police that he was the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff?
He doesn't have to.
It's a government phone.
The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff.
That's nonsense, Trevor. I'm not even accepting that. What if Iran had stolen that phone? What if Russia or China had stolen that phone? The Chief of Staff did not tell the police who he was. That is extremely fishy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Trevor. I'm not accepting this at all. That is extremely fishy.
Some people might say that's good conduct from a senior civil servant who doesn't use his position to get special treatment from the police.
If I tell you this now, as a government minister, when I was a government minister, if my phone was stolen, I would tell the police exactly what was on that phone and why it was a security issue. For him not to have told the police or the security services, I'm afraid is fishy. Let's get back to this is the man who advised. This is the man who advised the appointment of Peter Mandelson. Something we've now seen has been a huge cover-up, lots of lies. The Prime Minister saying he didn't know the extent of the relationship. Of course they're fishy.
Are you saying Morgan McSweeney is lying?
I don't know whether he's lying. I said the whole situation stinks. Why is it that when they knew we were going to be asking for documents and all the messages that he sent, his phone mysteriously disappeared and he didn't tell the police at the time who he was? That is extremely fishy. I stand by that. It is not a conspiracy theory. Questions need to be answered and he should come into Parliament and explain what happened.
You said this week, by the way, that you'd want to ban the burqa.
I have not said that at all. That is extremely fishy. I stand by that. It is not a conspiracy theory. Questions need to be answered, and he should come into Parliament and explain what happened.
You said this week, by the way, that you'd want to ban the burqa.
I have not said that at all. I have launched a commission looking into culture and integration. There's some people who want to ban the burqa. I've said this is something that we will look at. It's not even the burqa that's mostly worn in this country, it's the niqab. What I want, there are more serious things going on, but we should look at all these things. I firmly believe, as you know, you've seen a lot of my work, that culture matters, British culture and British values matter. We need social cohesion and integration. We can't have people separating into their own communities. And we want to do a huge piece of work that will come up with the best policies that will ensure that we can bring people together.
And government deciding the way women dress would be part of that?
Well, if you listen to the speech I gave, I said it's not really about banning the burqa, that this is just that culture is more than the clothes you wear or the food you eat. Policies that will ensure that we can bring people together.
And government deciding the way women dress would be part of that?
Well, if you listen to the speech I gave, I said it's not really about banning the burqa, that this is just that culture is more than the clothes you wear or the food you eat. It's norms, it's behaviour, it's how you treat women, it's how you raise your children. There is so much that we need to look at. A lot of people use banning the burqa as an example. There are things I've talked about, cousin marriage, a huge issue. We need to look at all of these things. There'll be no stone unturned, but that's what the culture and integration.
The reason all these things matter is that your party is facing this challenge from Reform UK. My Sky News colleagues have commissioned a poll that we're releasing today, and it shows which party of the right has electoral advantage at this moment. In 93 constituencies, that's you, Conservatives, but Reform beats you in 316 constituencies. Your refusal to countenance a deal, because we've discussed this before with Reform, is going to put Keir Starmer back in number 10 for 5 years.
Many of those constituencies that you're talking about with Reform are not necessarily places they would win anyway. These are places that are actually left. Gorton and Denton being a classic example. What I'm trying to say is that there is only really one party of the right, and that is the Conservative Party. Nigel Farage wants a bigger state. He wants to spend more money on welfare. He just wants to be in charge of a bigger government. And what I want people to understand is what the Conservative Party stands for.
But right now he's got a bigger claim than you have.
Well, the election is not right now. We've only just left office, not that long ago, less than 2 years, our worst defeat ever. It's going to take time. There are many people.
Well, Kemi Badenock, as promised, Leader of the Opposition is here. Welcome to the studio. Now, we've been talking about energy with the Education Secretary. The Conservatives are saying it should open up North Sea exploration. But how much would that actually save consumers? Because that's what everyone's worried about.
So what we want to see is the licences for Jackdaw and Rosebank lifted so that they can start drilling. There's a pipeline ready there. Overall, the figures that we have in terms of what we would get from tax takes about 25 billion over 10 years.
But what does that mean for consumers?
2.5 billion could be spent on lowering household bills. There are various figures up to £80. This is just one thing that you could do. But also the profits and the taxes which are made from the drilling can be used to subsidise bills. Drilling is part of drilling the North Sea is something that we need to do for our energy security, financial security as well. That's how you get national security.
But your shadow energy secretary, Claire Coutinho, who was with us a couple of weeks ago, she said on the record it wouldn't necessarily save very much money. She said that when she was in government.
Directly, but indirectly, yes, it does, because you can use the money from there to subsidise. But more importantly, jobs are disappearing. We are losing about 1,000 jobs a month in the North Sea oil and gas industry. This is very bad for Scotland in particular. We're not getting the tax revenue. You know, the government is not sloshing around with money. It's spending loads on benefits. Let's use the oil and gas that we have.
But I just want to stick on that point, because you're trying to make a big deal of this in political campaigning at the moment. But you've just said there that it might not help people directly with their bills, but you're presenting this as if it is a solution
because
to
it
people's
is. Because
fears
it
about
requires
their
the
bills.
government to make the link. It requires the government. The drilling isn't going to go directly onto people's bills, no. But if we can make sure that we stop importing from Norway, 40% of our imports are coming from Norway, who are drilling in the same basin. Why are we importing gas that is being drilled in that basin, but we won't drill our own? Why is it? This is a wider thing. It goes beyond bills. We want to bring bills down. We've got a cheap power plan for that, mostly by scrapping the silly taxes that Ed Miliband has put on, scrapping the carbon tax. We can do something to bring bills down. But drilling in the North Sea is a bigger issue. This is about our energy security. Yes, let's have renewables. Yes, let's have nuclear. But just saying no to North Sea oil and gas, something that is already there, when we're not ready for a full transition, is a bad decision.
But it's important to be clear to people about what you're saying, because you're making a big deal of this in a campaigning moment. We're approaching local elections. You're implying that this is what would help people with their bills soon.
Yes, it can.
But your colleague has said it wouldn't make a big difference.
She said that in government in a totally different context. So let's not mix the two things up.
You've said it would help her. You've said it might help indirectly. So let's just be clear about that, because your political opponents say you're misleading people by if you say drill, baby, drill.
We need to drill our oil and gas. We can scrap taxes on energy bills today. We don't need to have them on. Many people don't know how much of their energy bills are government taxes. We can drill in the North Sea and use the money from that to supplement, to replace. It is all related. Energy policy needs to be linked. No, I'm not saying that once you drill oil and gas in the North Sea, it's going to go straight onto your bills. No one has said that. But it is all related. And pretending that it is not related is very dishonest from a government that has a terrible energy policy.
And if you take what you called silly taxes off bills and scrap some of the levies, where do you get the money from to do things that energy experts tell you are absolutely vital, like updating the national grid, supporting renewables businesses? Some of those renewables subsidies have already gone from bills. But where do you get that money from if it doesn't go on energy bills?
Well, maybe we can get it from the taxes that we get from the North Sea oil and gas industry that we're destroying. We need to make sure that we're thinking things through. Right now, what we're seeing is that the net zero plans are not working. We're not getting a good transition to renewables, and we're stopping the oil and gas drilling. So we're getting the worst of both worlds. What I'm saying is let's make sure we use gas in particular, which is a transition fuel, to actually get to where we need to go.
In terms then of what might happen, though, in this autumn, because this is what people are worried about. Important to remember, bills in the next quarter are going to come down, but what many experts are predicting is that they're going to come up in the autumn. Yes. The government said that they would support people who were the least well off, who needed help most. Who would you say should have support with their energy bill?
So what I'm very concerned about is that the government is prioritising benefits constantly. Right now, what I want to see is them taking the burden off everybody. That's why I'm very focused on these taxes on bills.
No, but who would you support? That's our question here. Who would you support? So Liz Truss paid everybody's energy bill when there was the last energy shock around the war in Ukraine, costing tens of billions to the taxpayer. Who would get support if you were in charge?
I'm rejecting the premise of the question. I want to help everybody, but we don't have to do it with government interventions. This money is not in Keir Starmer's pocket. It's taxpayers' money. So when we say who would you support, we're taking money from taxpayers to give to other people.
Would and what I have said, support then with their energy
that's not what I said. I said support in a different way. Take the taxes off the bills. It's our cheap power plan. Take the taxes off the bills. Those green taxes. That is a much easier way to do it. Drill in the North Sea, and then you get taxes that way.
But this is an important question. So you can reject the premise of the question if you want, but I can hear people screaming at the TV saying, who would get help if there's an energy spike?
And I'm saying taxes that way.
But this is an important question. So you can reject the premise of the question if you want, but I can hear people screaming at the TV saying, who would get help if there's an energy spike?
And I'm saying, no, I literally said we can help everybody, just not in this way. So we need to stop pretending that there's a big pile of cash that Keir Starmer has, which he's just going to use to help people. He is taxing other people in order to provide that help. I am talking to businesses day in, day out who are saying, we're sacking people, we're closing down because we cannot afford this. So let's stop pretending that Keir Starmer is a huge philanthropist who's just trying to help people. What he is doing is taxing people to pay benefits. That has been this government's strategy from the get-go. I'm saying lower taxes.
What I want to be very clear, though, is if there is a big spike in people's energy bills, are you ruling out a direct...
So I'm not ruling out anything. What I'm saying is let's start off with taking the taxes. We do what we need to in government. I think government needs to do what it needs to. But let's not pretend that these huge bailouts don't come with a cost. We had, as a Conservative government, the biggest bailout during COVID. We paid people to stay at home. And when it was happening, everyone said thank you. But immediately afterwards, when the shock came, interest rates spiked, everyone forgot about that. I am saying governments need to start by taking taxes down first before looking for bailouts, which are going to cost taxpayers.
And it's a very clear philosophical divide between you and Keir Starmer. But I'm just trying to press you, and maybe the answer is that you don't know yet, you want to wait and see. But are you saying that you would never consider a direct payment to people to help with their energy bills?
At all. What I don't want to is talk about hypothetical and speculative things and set hairs running when actually we don't know what the situation is. We have, as Conservatives, done bailouts before, as you saw during COVID, the biggest bailout. Many people now see what the effects of that are. What I'm saying is that bailouts have a cost. Start off by reducing the taxes, drill in the North Sea. It's good for our energy security, our financial security, our national security. Listening to Bridget sitting there saying we need to do everything except the North Sea because of their ideological issues with it. This is all to do with Ed Miliband. He started this. He started these policies back when he was first energy secretary. He is the one running the government, according to Keir Starmer. I asked him on Wednesday, he said he couldn't make a decision because of Ed Miliband. I think that's
also
quite
have
ridiculous.
Changed their positions on energy quite a lot in recent years too.
I've changed our policy. We're under new leadership, and I'm being very specific. We need to do what is right for the country today.
In terms of the your leadership, what does a good result look for you like in the local elections in a few weeks' time and the national elections in Scotland and Wales?
So I've been very clear that we've got to fight for every seat. The era of two-party politics has turned into an era of multi-party politics. Things are different, and we only just left office 18 months ago. It's going to be very tough and a challenge, but Conservatives are coming back. People are liking the messages. I'm sure that we will. People are liking the messages that they are hearing from us, abolishing stamp duty, getting rid of business rates for most of the high street.
Not according to the polls. I mean, your personal ratings have improved a bit in the last couple of months, but according to the polls, and there they are, as if by magic. You were 26% when you took over. Now you're down at 17%.
Well, actually,
the public doesn't agree with you. Things have improved a bit in the last couple of months, but according to the polls, and there they are, as if by magic. You were 20.
The high street.
Not according to the polls. I mean, your personal ratings have improved a bit in the last couple of months, but according to the polls, and there they are, as if by magic. You were 26% when you took over. Now you're down at 17%.
Well, actually,
the public doesn't agree with you.
As I said the last time you asked me this question on your show, sometimes when you have a long-term strategy, in the short term, you do face difficulties. But I'm not going to be dissuaded from doing the right thing. There's only one party that is actually making proper plans, not just announcing random things, and that's the Conservative Party. Serious plans. And people are, when the general election comes, people are going to want to know what is actually going to happen. And they'll be looking to the Conservative Party because we're the only credible alternative to Labour.
OK, well, we will see. Kemi Badenock, thanks very much indeed for coming in to see us this morning at a very busy time.